Industrial decarbonization is 30% contributor to global carbon emissions.
When I jumped into Strong by Form, I really was jumping into like a black hole where I didn't know what was going to be the outcome. The superlative returns that software used to provide are not there anymore because it's an industry that's already mature. Today, no, the green premium does not exist. So the only way to be a clean tech is by doing what is hardest, is bringing something new that is better and that is cheaper. The problem of working with people that has experience in an industry is that they're very knowledgeable about everything that has happened before, but no idea about how to push technologies into the market. Moving fast through the TRLs has been key for us. We didn't build this company to become millionaires. We created a vehicle for a technology that can have a great impact. For me, success is to have an impact, is to be able to really be able to participate in the decarbonization of the planet.
Today's guest is Andres Mitnik, CEO and founder of Strong by Form, a company revolutionizing sustainable materials for construction and automotive industries. With a civil engineering background and a master's degree from Harvard and NYU, company has developed Woodflow, an advanced timber composite that replaces steel, concrete, and aluminum at a fraction of the weight and environmental impact. With over 5 million euros raised in partnerships with industry giants like BMW, Deutsche Bahn, and Vinci, Strong by Form is proving that nature-inspired materials can scale to meet the demands of our built environment. Full disclosure, I am an investor in Strong by Form. This conversation is for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. This is Conscious Tech with Sarah Tajima. So, Andres, thank you for joining me on the podcast today. I'm excited to talk a little bit more about Strong by Form. Also, full disclosure, so people know I'm also an investor in Strong by Form, so very much believe in the product. But before we get into that, I would love to just have you introduce yourself and hear a little bit about your background.
Totally. Well, serious. Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's a pleasure speaking today with you. My name is Andres Mitnik. I am the CEO of Strong by Form. I have a background as an engineer in my undergrad. Then I did economics at Harvard and urban planning at NYU. And I have a sort of a life experience that is quite broad, I would say. I've done from consulting to construction to VC and now startups. But I would say for the past probably 10 years already, my focus has been innovation, startups, and corporate venturing.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. So, really incredible background here, which is why I think we were also excited about you as a founder. As you know, for very early stage startups, you are really looking at the founders and their background. One of my missions with the podcast is to help kind of share my learning journey and educate more people on what's going on with climate and technology. I think a lot of the people listening to this podcast will actually be experts more in software. So I would love to just talk briefly about industrial decarbonization and why that matters and why you chose this problem in particular to focus on.
Absolutely. I think that the software can do a lot of things, and it's very efficient and at making things work in a smarter way. But the problem that you find with software is that there's no direct link with the world of physical things. And at the end of the day, we can measure carbon, we can implement strategies to reduce carbon, we can do a lot of things, but when you come to the fact that you need to build something, unless you change the way you build it, which incorporates hardware and software, we're still going to be emitting CO2 and having like big emissions. And because of the pace of the growth, especially in construction, as we are focusing in, the need of housing in the world is gigantic. There are plastics around, there are cars moving around, and all that stuff is associated to emissions. So I think that software was a first step. And I think that software has done a great job improving the way we do things and also measuring and helping sort of coordinate strategies to decarbonize the world. But we need the next step. And the next step is combining software with hardware so we can change the way we build things. That is, I would say, a bit more complex in the sense that those are business models that are less explored or are usually harder to finance because basically lack of experience and data. But also when you deal with the built environment, you have the issue that things take time. There's some things that you cannot speed up. And of course, like we're achieving the point where we're starting to scale. But just an example, I remember investors telling me like, okay, if I give you double the money, like how much faster will you go? And it's not a direct relationship. It's not like I've hired 3 more engineers and we double the speed. There's some testing, there are some processes, there's some things that simply take time. And usually VCs and the startup world is not used to those kind of processes because software is much more immediate.
Yeah.
To reach that space, we saw the opportunity that was a space where there's not so much development. That's why we decided to do actually software and hardware for the built environment.
Yeah, as you know, I'm part of an angel syndicate that's specifically focused on deep tech. But what I'm really excited about is we're seeing more and more just traditional VCs also focused investing heavily in climate tech. So they're allocating like a large portion of their portfolio towards that. Industrial decarbonization is 30% contributor to global carbon emissions. So we're dealing with a really massive portion, which is why I'm excited to dive more into the technology and how you're tackling that. What's your personal connection to industrial decarbonization?
Yes. So for me, industrial decarbonization comes from my passion from sustainability at the end of the day and seeing like the massive amount of developments. When I was a consultant in New York, I did basically real estate. And you see the massive amount of material that those buildings consume, the massive amount of steel. But furthermore, the massive mistakes that are made because of the way we are building things right now. So there's a data of the World Bank that says that every single building is really built like 1.3 or 1.4 times, basically because of all the destruction you need to put there.
Mm.
And of course, the way to solve that is moving to an industrial setting, because in industry it has chimneys, right? So it might have like a bad image out there, but construction, you don't see the chimneys, but it's like a huge channel of chimneys that are around, plus a lot of consumption of materials. And the way to solve that is actually bringing construction into the factory. Of course, running your factory as clean as you can, but those are things that are possible right now. And then reduce the uncertainty and only send components that are ready to be assembled. That's a way to improve productivity and to reduce material consumption and to reduce waste. And that's where and then this is an industrial process. And that's how I end up here. But just a last comment on, you mentioned the VCs investing more on deep tech. Honestly, I think that the superlative returns that software used to provide are not there anymore because it's an industry that's already mature. It's not providing those like 10, 20x that they used to. So where are those extreme returns? Many people are putting their bets on deep tech. Of course, I'm putting my bet there as well because I am an interested party. But that's why I think it's a big reason why we're seeing more traditional PCs that didn't really like hardware because of Apex, the time, etc. But they're moving to this space because they realize that software will not provide the returns that they expect as it used to before.
Absolutely. And that's like a core tenet of VC. As you mentioned earlier, for like traditional SaaS, you might be looking at an 8-year return timeline, 8 to 10 years or something. With deep tech, it's a much longer timeline because you have all of these physical components, which means that instead of something like 8 years or 10 years, you could even be looking at 15 years.
Absolutely. And that's why deep tech is hard to finance, but at the same time opens new opportunities, right? Like angel syndicates are good places. You need to search into places that are not obvious, I would say. In our case, has a lot to do with angels, with impact funds, and with corporate venturing, with CVC.
Yeah.
That has worked pretty well for us. I would say that now that this has taken years, right? Strong Reform started in 2018. So it has been 7 years on getting the prototype of our first structural element ready. And that's sort of the timing that you need to see. And we survived 7 years initially through grants, then angels, and then a combination of VCs and CVCs. And I feel today we are achieving the point where we are investable by the traditional VC because after 7 years, we are like in the 10 years threshold that they like. But it took us 7 years to reach here.
So patience is key. I want to dive a little bit into the kind of formation of Strong by Form. So how did it get started? And then tell us what your product is.
Totally. So
Product.
yes. Yes. So strong by form is in the business of replacing highly polluting structural materials like concrete, steel, and aluminum with wood. Of course, this is not traditional wood. This is a next generation timber composite that, among other things, not only needs to be better and greener, but also cheaper. And that's a huge ask for an emerging technology. But for example, we have cracked that. And to be super honest, I wasn't sure we were going to crack that until I really saw the numbers and we had more evidence. So and basically what this and this can have multiple uses. We're focusing in construction, specifically on structural floors, which are lighter than anything that's out there. That uses less wood than anything that's out there. Uses very cheap wood and a very high percentage of the tree. So it is extremely efficient in the use of the tree as a material, and then it weighs a fraction of concrete. So that creates a lot of savings and opportunities to optimize in other parts of the structure.
Mhm.
Other than that, this can be used for cars, it can be used for trains. We're pursuing multiple options because when you're able to shape wood the way we do it, we do 3D wood, you can transform wood into things that are usually covered by metals and plastics.
Yeah. So you're looking at customization, the sustainability component, and also cost savings.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So we need to combine those three things. And part of our cost savings come from the fact that we're very efficient in how we use wood, but also because we're very light. And lightweight allows to do cost savings in other elements of whatever you are building. So that's a very important part of what we do, being very lightweight in an industrial grade. So I connect that with how this came to life. My co-founder, Jorge, was obsessed with creating the lightest possible floor to support a specific load. He went to ETH in Zurich, and he was working with carbon fiber. And he got into shape optimization, into fiber alignment, into the latest optimization technologies to create something light and strong. Luckily enough, he realized there's no way we're going to build a world out of carbon fiber because first, it's too expensive. Second, it's really polluting. And that's when he thought, why don't I apply this logic to the world of natural fibers? Because natural fibers are fibers at the end of the day. And he got in touch with my other co-founder, Daniel, who has a lot of experience in timber manufacturing. And they arrived to this conclusion that, first of all, it's possible to do 3D wood and fiber alignment. They find a way to. But secondly, and most importantly, it is possible to do it in an industrial manner. Because carbon fiber is a handcraft at the end of the day. It's like a textile. You need to put this textile by hand into the molds. It has a lot of elements of a handcraft, and that's one of the reasons why it's so expensive. Woodflow, which is the name of our technology, on the other hand, tries to bring this logic of using these shapes and these fiber alignments, but in an industrial setting. And that's the big difference. That's why we live in a space in between traditional materials and really high performance materials, but our price point is way lower than anything that is high performance. And that's why we can compete with traditional materials one to one, and other super materials cannot do that.
Yeah. I think some people might look at something like a wood composite and think, okay, how does that hold up compared to steel?
Yes, and actually, we think steel is very strong, which it is. But when you see it per unit of weight, wood in the shape of a tree resists more than steel per weight, meaning a kilogram of wood resists more than a kilogram of steel in tension.
Mm.
Natural wood is a super material. And the thing is that when we get a tree and we transform that into boards and into planks, we kill much of the natural intelligence of the tree. And we're bringing that back to the world of what's called engineered timber. And that's how we are able to create something that is as strong as steel, but lighter than steel.
Yeah, I really like that. So you're essentially just applying the principles from nature. So sort of a biomimicry.
Absolutely. I mean, a tree is a 3D printer of wood that is in the business of creating the stronger tree using the minimum amount of materials because it's competing with all the other trees. So it's super efficient. It's super efficient for material consumption. And that's where we get the inspiration. That's where everything that we do comes from, like trying to get that intelligence back to engineered wood.
Yeah, great. Awesome. And the other thing is you have three founders, essentially, a team of three founders,
Yes.
which is quite unusual. So I wondered how that came about. And then in terms of practicality and day to day functions, how is that working?
Yeah, so that's a good point, especially for a deep tech, and I feel like our example is really good in this sense. First of all, we're all, let's call it, seasoned founders. When we started Strong Way Form, all of three of us were 40 plus years. So we already had a career, we already had experience, sort of, we weren't learning how to do business or how to run a company from scratch. We simply were developing a new technology and using on our knowledge and experience to support that. Secondly, of course, we start doing, everyone was doing everything, but very early in the process, we defined very specific roles. So one of us does structural engineering and product development because he has a PhD in engineering and is an amazing designer. The other one does software and hardware because basically he's a geek and very nerdy and he knows about all that stuff. And he has years of experience in manufacturing. So he knows the caveats of manufacturing, which is a big asset here because manufacturing is as much as an art as a science. Honestly, like it can be very complex. And they, which are Jorge and Daniel, are the technical guys. And they are architects, but they behave like engineers in this team. And they do all the technical developments and the technology is in their hands. And then my role is, as the CEO of the company, is basically doing business development, financing, strategy, and putting together this very delicate dance that we have between technology development, product development, and financing. All which need to move like in a very sort of organized manner to be able to achieve the funds that we need. But for us, for example, we're going to go fundraise in a few months. And I spend all my time in these commercial activities or in these fine line activities, which has been proven successful for us. And I was just came out of a meeting and I was thinking, what if I were the coding guy? What if I had to go and code everything, or I was the mastermind behind that and the team really need me sitting there, like looking at the code? Honestly, this project would not be feasible because like I would need to do that plus all the commercials. So I feel like a deep tech project works very well when you have a team that is devoted to the technical developments, but you also have someone very devoted to strategy and commercial developments. And that's not so usual because these are usually very technical teams. But in this case, I came to the team invited by my co-founders as the one that knew how to transform technology into business. And that's my role. And that's what I do.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast because I'm excited to dive into that in your experience and everything that you've been up to. So also for people listening, Andres is all over the place, really. I'm like, honestly, when do you sleep? Because now you're in Chile. You were just actually here in Amsterdam. We went to an architect's office together, an architecture firm. And before that, you were in Germany. And I think you also went to Paris. So tell us a little bit about what's going on with like the recent company updates. I know you also did like an exhibit here in Utrecht.
Yes. So this has been a very active few months, and that's why I've been traveling all around Europe. I've been everywhere. I also was in this event of Goldman Sachs in Munich. Very interesting. It's like a curated network of investors and a few startups focused on deep tech. For example, Flix CEO was there. They are the company that has the biggest fleet of trains. You wouldn't think about Flix maybe as a tech. So we launched our first product last year, which is called Woodflow Skin, which is more of a decoration. It's not structural, but looks amazing. And 3D wood looks very nice. And that's a product by itself that we're commercializing. So for that, we open a showroom in Milan during the Milano Design Week. We open a showroom in Paris at the Leonard building, which is part of the Vinci group, of the Vinci group. We did a train ceiling in Utrecht. And that's basically a derivative of this Woodflow Skin, which we are transferring from architecture to mobility. Doing a development with BMW, which I cannot talk too much about it, but it's about basically replacing metal parts or other components. But we have an agenda with them, and we are finalizing our Woodflow Core prototype. Woodflow Core is the product that the company wants really to scale. And this structural floor that I was referring to before. And that's the 10-meter long one. It's about to be ready in a few weeks, but we already did a 2-meter one. We did a 4-meter one, and we're on the 10-meter one now. And then of course, because we're going to go fundraising, I've been attending events, I've been attending workshops, I've been sort of making sure that Strong by Form is in everyone's radar for us to start the fundraise. Even though I know the scenario is hard, we also achieved this milestone that we did a very thorough engineering review of our technology. And we realized that in the structural floors, when you look at the project level, meaning not a square meter by square meter comparison to a concrete floor, but when you see the cost of all the structural materials in a building, we are competitive with concrete. And that was huge. That's like the holy grail of wood. The reason wood is used more widely in construction is because it's expensive. But being better, greener, and at the same price point or competitive in price point is really like a holy grail. And that's very exciting.
That is really exciting. What do you think the biggest technical breakthrough is that makes Woodflow Core commercially viable?
The biggest technical breakthrough is the fact that we were able to shape very low quality wood, and that proved to be successful. So we were able to create strength out of wood that usually is not used to create strength. Again, it's not trivial how to do it, but when we achieve that, everything opened in the sense that we achieved something that is strong and price competitive, which was
Yeah.
what was more important for us. It's a combination of material science, engineering, and design. And design, by the way, goes way beyond how this looks or how this is like. Design comes on the fact that how we're going to assemble these elements in a manner that is efficient and quick. So design in our case goes beyond what you see as a functional element, but design, but all this has on the background how to manufacture it in a more efficient manner as well.
Right. I want to dive into product market fit because, yeah, of course,
Mhm.
this is something that's very interesting as an early stage startup and also for my background in growth. So, hardware product market fit is quite different from finding software product market fit. So, what does good enough look like for your first few customers?
That's a very good question. First of all, we follow a strategy where we sort of hedge our risk in the sense that we are developing elements that are architectural elements that have a few challenges, elements for mobility that are similar to those architectural ones, but have more challenges regarding fire protection and, like how they get destroyed and things like that. And then doing structural elements for construction. So we were in mobility, we were in cars, we're in buildings, and that has created a lot of confusion sometimes on what to do and what the company is focusing on. To be honest, the company has always focused on the structural floors. The other elements were to hedge the risk because there was a risk that the structural floors did not work. If we would have placed all our bets there, the company would die basically if that's the case. So we didn't want that to happen. And also for a project like this, you also need to sort of create something that's more emotional, like you can see it. And if you see that we can build elements of a car out of wood that you in a way you have never seen before, you sort of trust that we are going to be able to do this floor. Like we are pushing the technology or the capabilities of wood to the limit. And we are showing that limit in different ways. But I think all those use cases show that we are able to push the capabilities of wood to the limit. But secondly, what we have done right now, more than go right away to something that is very super efficient and is ready to be on a shelf, for example, we have focused on doing the best possible that we can, meaning our projects are up to our standard, not up to the standard of our clients. In the sense that when I go and let's say at the showroom in Paris, the guys from Vinci love the showroom in Paris, can't believe that it's there, they think it's amazing. Honestly, for me, it's a project that is okay, and I see many flaws, and we learned a lot from that. But our product market fit has initially been, we're going to show something that is the most possibly amazing thing that you can see, and then we're going to work on how we can fit your budget with our product. And that has proven a way to sort of create desirability, like to make it like people want it. And now we're working on the costing. But I think the only way to really know if someone wants your product or not is to show them how good can it be, but at the same time, what's the price point at scale. For the first deployments, we have definitely lost money because our production capabilities right now are not at scale. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Now they're beginning to be at scale. 4 months ago, they weren't. What we sold 4 months ago was more expensive than manufactured at the price we sold it. But that's a way, I think, to prove product market fit at the price that you can sell it, not at the price that it costs to develop it, because that's always going to be more expensive.
Great. Thank you for sharing. So this is something that I had wondered about early on as an investor because, you were hedging your bets. And I think that's very clever. And I also really like that you mentioned tapping into emotions and also making sure that strong by form is seen very physically and in the forefront of people's minds. Because I think one thing that founders struggle with a lot actually is just getting people to know that their product even exists, right? And I think you've been so good at that, because I see you like all over LinkedIn, I see you in person, I see you at events, at conferences, speaking. And so as a founder, you've done such a good job at making the product Woodflow Skin be really visible and at the forefront of people's minds. I also like that idea of having like a visionary company where you're really showing people what's even possible with the product.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's why I think you need someone devoted to that, because honestly, that is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And we struggle with that as many deep techs. Like, people don't design with our material because no one knows it exists,
Yeah.
at least at the beginning. And now a lot of more people knows it, and we continue to promote it. But this promotion, it's like when you do a PowerPoint and you have the content, but you're struggling with the design. Like, I remember when I was an analyst and a consultant, thinking like, why do I spend so much of my time, instead of crunching data and creating conclusions, making this slide look pretty? And it's because if it doesn't look good, no one really pays attention. So many times, people that come from a technical background do not understand the value of being a good communicator. And for this type of technologies, that is crucial. So for example, what we do, everything that comes out of Strong by Form looks awesome. Like,
Yeah.
really good. For example, our webpage, which is supposed to be good, like now is for me like substandard. I need a new one because we already at that stage. But for every single stage, we felt like everything has been like really good quality and very appealing. And that creates this sensation of people really wanting us to succeed. Then you get, investors, partnerships, projects, etc. Combined with a very cooperative setting. We love cooperating with companies. We know we won't change the built environment by ourselves. So is that, together with being very open to collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think about finding the right customer profile in the near term versus having that long-term vision?
Yes. So what I think that's sort of product specific, but I can explain our rationale. Our rationale is the following. Our structural floor, for everyone that is listening, basically looks like any other floor, and the intelligence is inside. And that's a strategy that we're following, because if you come with something too disruptive, it's harder to implement. And secondly, we don't want to teach people, or have the need to teach people to build in a new way. We want them to use what they know, but simply basically don't even realize that our stuff is new. They will realize that it's lighter, and they probably won't understand that. But in that product, you don't even see the technology, and you're asking a lot, because we're asking for someone to put their bets in something that needs to last for 40 years with a new technology. So that's not. Then you see, like, there are reports. For example, there's a report by Bain and Company that says that 80% of the B2B sales happen among parties that already know each other. So it's not like B2B is this dry space where there are no emotions, and it's not like B2C. No, B2B is the same. It's even closer. It's people talking to each other, not even seeing things in shelves. And if someone likes you and likes your product, great. If someone likes your product and doesn't like you, not great. There's
Yeah, I
uh,
was wanting to tell you.
so how can we start the process of marketing this product before it even exists? And that's a question that a startup needs to make, because if we were using traditional funding, that, okay, maybe we would take longer. But because we're using VC money, we are in the process of being very quick. So
Mm.
how do we do that before having the product? Because the product takes time to develop. And that's where Woodflow Skin, the architectural version, comes into play. And that's why I think that was such a smart move, that it didn't even come from us. Come from someone that we were talking to, who told us like, hey guys, have you thought about doing this architectural thing? It looks pretty good. And we were like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Was that an investor or?
No, that was actually a guy from a company called SOM, which is one of the largest architecture and engineering firms in the world. And he was
Nice.
talking about actually Silicon Valley. Like, he showed us a building that was a steel building covered in wood, just to look like wood, and it looked terrible. But what happened with that product? That product allows us to talk to architects, to real estate developers, and to construction companies. cladding is part of a building. And these are the same guys that we're going to have to go and talk to when we sell wood flow core. So the trick is that this early product is allowing us not only test the market and generate early revenues, but also to create the network and the position the company in the space where we will have to be when we go and market the other product.
Mm-hmm.
The trick about wood flow skin also is that it looks amazing. So it makes easy for people to associate strong by form with innovation, with new technologies, with superb execution. And that's why we're so delicate on everything we execute right now. Because of course, if we put an installation someplace and it doesn't work, no one will trust the structural floor. But we have sort of being able to bring to the present a sales process that would come in the future by using, like, let's call it a proxy that works for the same industry. And basically from then each specific product needs a product market fit. So for example, when we're in cladding, we realized that first of all, we did this study together that was super useful to understand where were the main clients, and understanding that hotels and retailers, they constantly renovate, so they are probably a better client than big architecture studios that do a building once in a while. Who took the decisions? What's the importance of sustainability in decision making, et cetera, et cetera. And then what's the size of the panel? So we started with smaller ones and we have bigger ones. So I mean, the problem of working with multiple products, even though they are part of a strategy that makes sense, is that every single product needs product market fit, and you need to put effort into that.
Yeah. But to your point, it is a brilliant strategy to sort of get your foot in the door with the right clients. And as you were talking, I was smiling because we just went to the architecture firm here with no awareness that that was their strategy. But apparently their strategy for the year is to incorporate more wood into their buildings. So it turned out perfectly, right?
Exactly. And remember that there we went to show wood flow skin because we thought that, because they told us that they were interested in that. And then we ran into the engineer that was there, and he was totally into wood flow core, and his emails are like till today. So exactly.
Yeah, that's also why I was smiling, because you were talking about how beautiful it is and how people get really impressed by it. And I was thinking back to this moment where we were standing outside actually and just continued our conversation with him about the product and how great it is. And then you mentioned the research that we did on product market fit. So we did research together specifically focused on product market fit and talking to the right sort of target market. And this was with my company led by one of the interns, Lucia, and also Stacy was involved. So I just want to shout them out. But for this research, was that the first time that you did research on product market fit? And then what kind of research have you done since then?
Yes, that was the first time we did any research on product market fit. That was a stage where Wood Flow Skin was very, very early, like was just launched. And what I liked about that study, that was targeted. So we didn't talk to so many people, but the questions were very well structured, and we knew what we were planning to get out of it. Because of other agreements that we had in place, we had to do sort of afterwards a more formal study, meaning like with a consultant that has experience in this field and has worked. And to be honest, Sarah, we didn't learn much more, and we spend more time and more money. No, honestly. And I think something that's very relevant for us is to work with someone that understands that we are doing innovation. So one of the reasons, so the other study, at the end of the day, it was segmented. So I stopped it at the end of the first phase, basically because once I have the diagnosis and the markets and sort of the data, when it comes to the part of creating like a go-to-market strategy, like if you are in an industry as traditional as wood, you get the same recommendations. So how do you sell this? You hire salespeople, and salespeople talk to clients, and then one client gets convinced, and then the cycle starts all over again. If we do that, we're going to be part of the sales cycle of any other material. And there are few material companies that you would think of like a startup. So that's definitely not the way to go for us. We will not be able to scale at the speed we want to scale if we follow traditional sales processes. And the problem of working with people that has experience in an industry is that they're very knowledgeable about everything that has happened before and about big investments, but no idea about how to push technologies into the market. And that combinations that we found together, that like you were well aware of the fact that we were a startup and helped me sort of design the more than help me, you design it and I help you design the questionnaire and achieve what we wanted to obtain from there and what was the relevant data and what was possible and what was not. And in a pretty quick manner. I think we did it in what, 2 months?
Yeah. Yeah. It was really quick.
It was really quick. That was super useful. And honestly, I'm still using that info more than anything.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that because obviously my background comes from the Bay Area. So it's like really Silicon Valley techniques and growth hacking techniques and product design. So I'm thinking more from that lens than from like a traditional consultancy that already has deep expertise. And to be honest with you, when you're finding product market fit, I think it's more helpful when the person that you're working with doesn't have deep expertise because then they're going to catch all of those little things. I pulled up some of the learnings. One thing that I thought was really interesting is that cost was a top priority for these luxury clients.
Yes.
And so it was interesting. They were surprisingly budget conscious and immediately they associated something custom with very high costs, which is not the case for Strong by Form.
No, and that was a great input to tailor the way I do my sales pitch. Now I put an emphasis on the fact that I say like, you see this very bespoke. Well, first of all, we created a catalog, so
Right.
so that immediately creates a sense that it's not that expensive because it's not bespoke. But
Yes.
if you want bespoke, you can do it. And of course, there's some additional cost. But again, the substrate is all the same. This is like repetition that you see in a different way, but it's very easy to manufacture. I mean, everything that you are not seeing is the same. It's just a last layer that you're seeing that is different. And that's also helped me a lot because now I transfer the message that don't start thinking that this is crazy expensive and this will blow your budget. This is a new way to do bespoke. And I
Right.
never thought about that before.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. And then they immediately check out if they think that it's going to be above the budget that they have. The catalog was something kind of unexpected that people indicated through the research that they wanted.
Totally. So we never thought about doing a catalog because we have the ability to shape wood in a sort of not very expensive manner. And we always thought that that was the competitive edge and that was very praised by the market,
Yeah.
that architects could do whatever they want and have this freedom to use wood in this new way. But then we realized, remember, that architects do a lot of work on the facade, but interiors, they don't spend much time because no one really takes that picture so much. You always see the building from the outside, and that's where the prestige of the architects comes from. The interiors are great, but are a second priority. And for those second priority, they don't invest so much time and they like catalogs. That may sound, honestly, to whoever is listening, like, did you really have to do a study to realize that? Honestly, yes. Yes. I never thought about that if it wasn't for the study. And the catalog we have right now is an amazing asset.
Yeah. It's great. Also, when you're walking around talking to potential clients and handing it out to people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it looks pro and it shows the capabilities and it has an installation manual also. So we solved many questions with the catalog, and the catalog was totally outside of our agenda.
Amazing. Yeah. The other thing that particularly impacts deep tech and kind of climate tech companies in particular is regulations. Software, I think, can often kind of fly sort of below the radar of regulations, or it's too slow to regulate and then it hits you several years later. But in this case, I think one thing that also came up was kind of the durability aspect of the product and also fireproofing. So I'm curious how you tackled that challenge since the research.
So basically, what we have done for that is that we realize that you need different clients, or type of clients have different needs. There are very heavy duty areas in public spaces that need a more sort of a stronger coating, because the coating is what protects the material from being scratched from getting damaged. But for example, if we want to do like a house, it's not a heavy duty area. So we can use sort of less, we need coatings that are not as heavy as that. And then if you are doing a building, it's different than to do a train. So fire resistance then also varies. But basically what we have done with that is that we beefed up our material science team. So when we were working on this Syria, we had one person in material science. Now we have a senior material scientist and three other people working with her. Basically, because we realize it's an area that needs a lot of attention from our space.
Yeah.
Um, Just to give you an example, there's no product in the world right now made out of wood that is thinner than 12 centimeters that is sort of fireproof, not really fireproof, but has a high uh, fire resistance. There's no. We work with big manufacturers of timber. Ours has 3 millimeters. So we are really pushing the technology there.
Yeah.
And that's why we need a material science team, because we realize that this is the type of solutions that they're not available in the market. Proofing, it is available. Relation, it is available. But no one has ever faced the challenge of doing 3 millimeter wood that is fire resistant. And we needed this team. And now we have contacted world-class experts and multiple suppliers, and we installed a lab here. And now we have I would say a decent lab, not a big lab, but we have a few machines there, and we have a full team working on that to make it more durable, more fire resistant, and to comply with all these characteristics. And then also understanding the product, because for example, for Berlin, where we did a weather cabin, basically a canopy for waiting the bus. A main concern was graffiti. And we spent so much time finding anti-graffitis, and we were convinced by them, and we did tests. And at the end of the day, weather cabin has been standing there for like 6 months now, maybe more, almost a year. And no one has painted it because it looks amazing. So
Okay, awesome.
they also, like sometimes clients are used to have some needs because they know of their previous experience how people behave.
Yeah.
But when people deal with our material, they behave differently. So next time we would do someone like that, probably we wouldn't like put so much effort in anti-graffiti, because we know people don't spray it.
Yeah, it'd be really unusual. It's fascinating also kind of what that says about the human psyche. Like when you see something that looks so beautiful, okay, I'm not going to graffiti that. But if it's just like some ugly, side of the wall or glass or something, people don't respect it.
Totally. I think that a project like this one has a lot of psyche in between.
Mm.
Between creating things that are very appealing and you can like see this green future, and at the same time create things that are very efficient and that can compete in the market. But like, at least in my experience, to push a deep tech, you need some degree of willingness of the people that are involved in the project are not only involved because of the financial returns of the project, but also because they want the project to succeed. That has been the case with our investors and our partners.
I get that sense as well, certainly for you and me. So you're working on something that's, really exciting and really cutting edge that's never been done before. I'm also wondering, how do you source the material that you're using?
Yes, so that's a very good point, because wood is a delicate material. And when I say that we work with wood, many times I get these questions about, hey, but do we really want to cut trees? Trees like provide oxygen. So for us, it's very important how it's sourced.
Mm-hmm.
Our technology, luckily enough, it's very agnostic to the type of wood. So basically, we're going to source local wood from wherever we have an operational facility. That was one of the reasons, for example, that we decided to work with wood and not with bamboo. Bamboo is great, it's light, and it's very strong, but it only grows in a few areas in the planet. Wood is the natural fiber that is mostly widely available in an industrial manner in the world. And that's why we use wood. The wood industry, on the other hand, has a number of certifications for sustainable forestry. To be honest, if it was up to me, I would go further than that. And I would try to be more sustainable, because I believe that forests need to be biodiverse and not monoculture, and that you need to cut few specimens in specific places so you don't really disturb the environment. So I think there's room to improve there. But for today, what we're doing is that we are making sure that all the wood that we buy comes with certification from sustainable forestry. We have 3 companies that do own forests and that do all process wood. So right now we are sourcing from them, which is also easy for us. So we're sure that those certificates are good. If once we scale and let's say we go to Asia and we started like sourcing wood, let's say from China, Vietnam, or countries that you need to do a bigger effort, we definitely, part of our agenda will be visiting suppliers, making sure that it works well. And basically ensuring that we are not promoting sort of deforestation nor any type of sort of bad practices when it comes to logging.
Right. It also makes you think a bit about the circularity. So also like how are you reusing wood that's already in the environment and whatnot?
Yes. And then it's when regulation comes, because we can, for example, there's no technical reason why we cannot use recycled wood, because for this, specifically for these structural floors, we use what's called flakes. So we do not work with logs or with sawwood, we work with flakes, and you can make flakes out of old wood. That's not a problem.
Mhm.
The problem is that to certify it, you need the formulation to be exactly the same every time. And for that, everything that comes needs to be sort of the same on the feedstock. That no one is providing that from recycled wood. So that's a
Market
regulation
opportunity.
issue. Or a business opportunity. Now, once we grow, we're going to enable someone to do that business, which is basically sorting out recycled wood.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily have thought of the regulations, but of course that makes sense. So, one thing that we're seeing with the way that the US is shifting and with the administration there is a lot of the regulations are all over the place. And that's kind of the number one concern for well, not necessarily American founders, but founders in the US. And one thing that was very interesting about the research that we did together is even though the EU has regulations for sustainability and you could say is leading the way globally, we also found that customers that we spoke to in our target market are prioritizing cost over sustainability. So I'm curious what sort of impact that had on you. Did it change anything in your positioning?
I mean, definitely made us understand that even though we are providing something that is very cutting edge, we are cost sensitive. So to be honest, before that, I never thought I was in the business of producing cheap things. I thought I was in the business of creating a lot of value, meaning taking something that is sort of a material that is available and can bring it to a better use. And I thought that because it looks amazing, because it allows for further savings, we weren't in the business of competing with cost. And that study clearly changed my mind there. From there onwards, we are a company that is focused on improving our production process to make it as cost efficient as possible right now. And that was a great insight, basically because today, now the green premium does not exist. That doesn't exist. So the only way to be a clean tech is by doing what is hardest, is bringing something new that is better and that is cheaper. And if this situation would have caught me 3 years ago, probably we wouldn't be in the position where we are right now, because I would continue to think that we're trying to do the most awesome thing and the market would swallow it, because also there's regulation on the other side, right? It's like construction companies are forced to change because they cannot pollute so much, and there's regulation pushing for these changes, but
Mhm.
that can get delayed. But at the end of the day, I didn't realize that technology had to be so cost conscious, and the study helped me realize that and refocus. And that, for example, the catalog, right? The catalog is using a bit the wow factor, but reducing a lot the costs. So it's a great trade-off. Yeah, and I feel now we're in a good position to go raise funding, because we can say that we are better, greener, and price competitive.
That is a much heavier burden now on climate tech companies because it's not just, oh, we're climate tech or we're sustainable, so you should purchase this product instead. But it really comes down to actually being competitive as well in cost.
Exactly.
So you mentioned that you're going into fundraising now. I wanted to hear a little bit about that process. And could you actually maybe just start a little bit with telling us about the seed fundraising process?
Absolutely. So we did a seed fundraising process of about 4.5 million euros 2 years ago, in November 2023. And at that stage, we did not have any like real product in the market. And the goals of that round were very clear. So the goals of that round were bringing Woodflow Skin to the market. And we have a number of KPIs regarding projects, pilots, etc. We're also achieving a manufacturing process for Woodflow Skin, which we call Woodflow Cell, which is a robotic process
Mhm.
that would be ready to be licensed so others could manufacture our Woodflow Skin. The third one was bringing Woodflow Core ready, having a prototype of Woodflow Core ready so we can demonstrate and test that our 10-meter long floor actually works. 10-meter long is where wood don't compete today with concrete. That's why we're focusing on there and not shorter. And then doing a pilot in mobility. So that was the roadmap. The roadmap was getting a new product into the market, get your manufacturing technology ready to be licensed, demonstrate that the big product that you are into works, and explore some other uses. And we did all of them. We actually did, we overachieved a few. We worked more on mobility than was expected. And the wood flow core prototype was originally 4 meters, and we were building the really 10-meter long one. But we also had to do some trade-offs. For example, we didn't install a manufacturing facility in Europe. We
Mhm.
kept manufacturing in Chile, and we're still operating our manufacturing process. But that was a strategic decision to win more runway, and because we didn't see the demand that would justify duplicating the infrastructure we have right now. So I think that was a smart move. And 2 years later, we grew from 7 to 30. We have the process, we have the prototypes, we have like work with brands like BMW, et cetera, et cetera. And now we're going to go and raise 10 million euros. And these 10 million euros are mostly focused on wood flow core. Wood flow core, again, is a structural floor, 10 meters long, that we talk about, and that we need a pilot plant. We need a pilot plant because we need to certify this. And to certify it, you need to certify the production process as well. It's not just certifying a product. So we need to create like a Lego version of all the single processes that will happen at a bigger scale. Then we are going to certify this. We're already starting the certification process. We are going to do the first commercial deployments of Woodflow Core because you can do them in countries like Switzerland before achieving certification.
Mhm.
And we will continue with the agenda of Woodflow Skin, but the idea is to transform it into a sustainable business unit that works by itself. And hopefully we're able to transfer it to one of our partners or investors because we like the product, but we think that we need to focus on Woodflow Core. And then mobility, we are going to continue working most likely with BMW and not more than that. Cars are tricky and BMW is great. And we have a established relationship with them, but we don't want to lose the focus of Woodflow Core. I think cars will come at a bigger scale in a few years. But right now, the focus is to put this structural force into the market.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we're seeing traction is in trains, and that agenda could be a bit bigger. But again, that needs to be everything that is mobility needs to be self-financed because the energy and the resources are going to be placed basically on Woodflow Core this time because this is a big jump. Is showing that we can manufacture it and that we can put it in projects.
Amazing. What kind of milestones do you think investors are looking for, particularly as you're going into this round of fundraising?
I mean, of course, investors as always focus on unit economics and really the milestone. I think that no one doubts anymore that we can do what we say we do. So I want to have the 10-meter long demonstrator tested just as a way to say like, hey, there's no risk there. Okay. Like that is not here. But I think that the main thing they're looking at is costs. Is production costs. And that's why we're doing a few exercises ahead of the round. First of all, we work with an engineering company that designed a 6-story building and did all the engineering using concrete, using mass timber, and using our elements for the floors, only for the floors. And that allowed us a couple of things. First, show how efficient we are in material construction, but it also allows us to show the additional savings that replacing a heavy floor with a lightweight floor encompasses. So now we do have the model that we can demonstrate to say like, hey, if we're able to produce this at 250 euros per square meter, we are competitive in price with concrete. So now we have a sort of a benchmark. We need to achieve that price. And on the other hand, there's a full team working on how do we design a plant that has the productivity to achieve this 250. And we're doing that. That is almost ready. And that same team is designing the pilot plant because the pilot plant is only a small version of the largest plant. And I think that investors are looking for all that data to be sure that I think today's investors' main concern is price in the sense that how are you going to come to the market if construction companies are going under every day? A construction industry that is not booming right now. To come into the market is to provide something that is better and the same price, at least, or not or cheaper. And that's what they want. And that's why we're doing all this engineering work to support them. And for this, we hire external engineering firms. We want a third party to validate this and not all be our own claims.
Yeah, fair. That makes sense. How has the TRL progressed from the seed round till now when you're raising for the Series A?
Different products or different elements of the technology have different TRLs. A Woodrow core went from a TRL 1 to a TRL 4. It's going to achieve TRL 5 in a few months, and even 6, because we're going to put it sort of outside the lab and we're going to place it not in a real project, but in a real project setting. Again, moving 5 TRLs in 2 years is insane. Like no one does it in the wood industry, and it's
You
really
make it
hard.
relax.
Yeah, it's really hard, but you need to get creative, right? So, and then I would say wood flow skin is about TRL 8, and it was then in TRL 5, because we have sort of tested it in the lab. But now we do have real applications. I think the only thing that's left is like really have a constant flow of projects. Then the manufacturing process also is probably like it was in TRL 4. It was a smaller version. Now it's a fully functional industrial facility that is still being upgraded. But moving fast through the TRLs, and that's a great question, has been key for us. We don't see it so specifically like in moving in TRLs. We think about it in pushing the technology. But I remember a few years ago, one of the huge questions that I was asked was, how are you going to advance through the TRLs so quickly?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a good question. But we have been able to do so. A lot of that has been by working with others. So Fraunhofer is building the 10-meter long prototype. We are not building it. Someone else did the engineer. We're overseeing these processes, but we are leveraging on people that has more expertise and more equipment to go this further. We're going to test it with Gropius in the south of Germany. We're not going to put a test facility ourselves. And those all those collaborations have allowed us to speed up really the TRLs, because there's a lot of funding of equipment, of even professional skills that we don't have, and that we don't need to acquire them, but we sort of get them through collaborations.
That's a great way to kind of fill the gaps. I just have a few quick questions for you. So it's kind of like a rapid fire round. The first thing, is there a book that you return to frequently?
Yes, I like this book that's called Build, but the guy that created the iPhone and you have it there?
I think I have it, yeah, on my bookshelf.
I love it. I love it. And I go back every time when the guy says like, hey, my first company, we struggled getting the perfect product out there and we never launched. And the second time I was like, I'm going to launch the first thing that is basically ready for the market. And I need to think that every single day, because our things have 1,000 of options and I need to get into the market. So I need to get everyone on the mind frame that is, we're not building the best right now. We're building the minimum required for the market, and then we'll improve it.
The MVP. Favorite way to rest and recharge, if at all?
I love closing my Saturdays at least.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely rest one day of the week at least for me is crucial, and Saturdays are usually my sacred days.
What do you do on Saturday?
I usually start by biking and going to the gym. Then I always have a nice lunch with someone. In the afternoon, I don't know, I chill, whatever.
Nice. Okay. Largest challenge you're facing right now?
The fundraise, for sure.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
also just spoke with another founder. Yes, fundraising, very challenging. The greatest learning from your founder journey?
I would say two things, if I can pick two and not only one. The first thing is first is a more personal one. First is that being a founder sounds super risky, and it is super risky, but if you do it the right way, it's not like shooting yourself. And what I'm saying is that when I jumped into Strong by Form, I really was jumping into like a black hole where I didn't know what was going to be the outcome. And I thought that it was very likely that in a year or two, I would be out of a job and would need to find a job like at 50. And that didn't sound so easy. But through the process, I realized that the networks, the connections, and everything that everyone when you have a project that you're able to deliver and you do it the proper way, it actually creates a reputation that you can then use in a different project.
Mm,
So now I'm very confident with Strong Reform, and I think that allows me to leverage better risk, because I'm not placing I'm placing all my bets in Strong Reform, but if things go under, which is a possibility always in this kind of projects, I don't feel I'm going to be sort of lost in the world. I feel like I will have a lot of skills and connections that no one teach you it's impossible to be taught in the books. It's going to be by the market. So that gives me like ease, and,
yes,
and allows me to sleep better at night.
completely agree with that.
Yeah, and that's super important for your mental health, actually.
Mm, yeah.
And the other lesson is that, and this is might be particular for from this team, but For me, it's super important to be very conscious that this project cannot be executed by a single person. And that has been very important to maintain cohesion among the founding team. In a previous life, I used to have a rock band, which the dynamics between the players and the founders is pretty similar, right? We all own the project. And there, like the four of us thought that we didn't need the rest to do the trick. And of course, that didn't end well. In this case, we can have the worst disagreements, but I am convinced that I cannot do this without my co-founders. And that has proven an engine to keep the founding team together, because we need to resolve whatever we have. We need to resolve it. If we don't resolve it, the project dies.
Yeah.
And that has been, it's a very nice feeling to know that you need someone as much as the other person needs you. Yes. And that also has been a nice learning.
Yeah. Founder relationships are so critical.
Exactly.
Last question. What is success for you?
For me, success is to have an impact, is to be able to really be able to participate in the decarbonization of the planet, to be honest. And I know it's a very ambitious goal, but that's success for me. We didn't build this company to become millionaires. We didn't build this company to own it forever. We created a vehicle for a technology that can have a great impact to achieve its potential. That's what we are doing. It encompasses creating a huge company, because without a huge company, you don't have a huge impact. But that's what wakes me up every single day in the morning, honestly. Money is super important, but it's a medium more than an end. So that's why sometimes I get asked, like, hey, when are you going to see an exit? And I say, hey, it's hard. Like, I might hold the company for 10 years until I feel like we have reached a point where someone else can extract the maximum potential, or I can run into someone tomorrow that demonstrates that they are better fitted than us to achieve maximum potential, and I will be open to sell the company. But success for me will be like Woodflow or something similar to Woodflow having an impact.
Yeah. As a founder, that is an awareness that you need to have, especially when you're considering whether it's like an acquisition or whatever the exit strategy is. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. This was, such a great conversation. Andres, as always, it's a pleasure chatting with you.
A pleasure chatting with you, Sierra. I hope to see you soon if I catch you in Europe next time.
We'll have to have another chat.
Hey, thank you so much for the invitation.